Hi, everyone.
Are you okay with the birds?
Hi, Arjen. Hi, Anna. Um, and hi, dear young musicians, audience of the pop-up festivals of the World Music Day. My name is Alicia Swiecek. I'm European Affairs and Program Manager at ECSA. ECSA is the European Composer and Songwriter Alliance. We are the European umbrella organization for over 60 composer and songwriter associations in Europe, and we advocate for the interests of composers and songwriters here in Europe. And without further ado, I would like to say hi to Anna, and she's one of our delegates from Denmark. So she represents a songwriter society, a songwriter association in Denmark. She's an artist, songwriter, and producer. And yeah, I would like to give you the floor to introduce yourself. Anna.
Thank you, and hello everybody. Yeah, as you said, I'm a songwriter and producer myself, and I've been releasing I think more than 20 albums with different bands throughout the time, and now I'm also the chair of the Composers and Songwriters Association here in Denmark, and also the vice chair of CODA, which is the collecting society in Denmark. And then I'm also in SIAM together with Ariane, which is the international organization for songwriters and composers.
Thank you. And now to Arjen, he's from the Netherlands, also a delegate at ECSA, representing the pop music genre in the pop music songwriters in the Netherlands. He was a performing artist, and now he focuses on songwriting, composing, and producing. Would you like to say a little bit more about yourself?
Hi everybody. Well, just like Alicia said, I'm basically I started out as a performing artist, writing my own stuff and performing with a band. We toured a lot of different countries in Europe and also in South Africa, Japan, all over the world. Now I'm more focused on well, songwriting and producing in my studio. I sometimes make some music for documentaries, songs for other people, well, stuff like that. I'm also involved in copyright. I'm the vice chair of Boomestemra, which is the Dutch copyright collecting society. And well, already the list that Alicia mentioned, like I'm in ECSA and I'm in SIAM, as Anna mentioned. So it's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, great. Could we already start with the big question? What are the rights that young composers, songwriters, musicians need to know about? I mean, we're talking about songwriters more or less here. So could you delve, Erin, maybe into authors' rights, why they are important? Talk a little bit about it, explain what it is.
Yeah, of course. Authors' rights it's like one of the biggest rights that you deal with as a creator and as a musician most of the time. And basically, it's very simple. You create a work and you get the author's rights to that work, and it has to be an original work. So you have to write something original. It's an original ID. But there's no need to trademark it or anything. You can just, whenever you thought of the ID, it's the copyright, the author's right is created. And well, it sounds kind of weird, as in you just think of a melody and you're like, oh, this is an original melody, and you have the author's right. But it's basically it's a great thing, because as a composer or as a songwriter, you get the author's right, and this gives you a certain position to do something with the work you created. So basically, you can tell other people that they are allowed or not allowed to use it. If somebody else wants to perform your work, you can say, no, I don't want you to do that. And it also gives you the right to get a remuneration for your work. So you are basically allowed, if somebody uses your work, to get some money for it. And as a musician, money is always welcome because it's a tough world. So there's different ways, of course, to get money from authors' rights. You have the part where they call it a public performance, which basically means if you are on a playing in a venue, giving a concert, you perform the works that you've written to an audience. So this is a situation where you should get some money for the use of your works. This, of course, is also the same if you have it on a radio or television or Spotify. That's also like a public performance. So you should get some money for the songs that you've written. Next to that, and this is something that used to be way bigger in the past, you had mechanical rights. Um, and they were basically about CDs and vinyl. You know, if you started to duplicate things, you should get a small portion for the copyright. Nowadays, vinyl is growing, of course, but mechanical rights are sort of dying. It's a dying breed, so to speak. So there's not that much money to be made on that side of copyright. But still, it's important when you have, for instance, a sync. And a sync fee is a synchronization, which basically, if somebody makes a commercial for a big brand and they want to use your music, they got to ask you permission to use it. And that's a sync fee, a synchronization fee that they would have to pay. So in my opinion, these are the three most important income streams for authors' rights. You have the public performance, the mechanical synchronization, and the synchronization right. I hope it's not too technical, but please ask anything else, Alicia, if you want to know more or specifics. But this is sort of the basics of authors' rights, and it gives you a very strong position as a songwriter.
I know that's perfect because authors' rights are complicated. And we have Anna back with us, I hope. But we can still delve into this. So is it true that you can get mechanicals out of streaming as well as a songwriter?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think that I don't know if this is a thing in my society at Boomer Samurai is you get from a stream, for instance, Spotify. Yeah. But if you have a stream at Spotify, you will get like some money, which is 75% public performance, so performance right, and 25% mechanical fee, because it's a technical thing. When you stream something, it creates a small cache memory on your computer, which is basically the same as a duplication for a short time. Yeah. So if you want to get very technical, we can talk about that. But it's true. You get some small parts of mechanicals for streaming. That's right. And downloads, on the other hand, remember when iTunes started out and they had a lot of you can download your music, that was more mechanical. But that's also who downloads music anymore except DJs. Basically nobody else.
Well, you can still buy albums from Amazon as a download, not as a CD, but as a download.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But my guess is not a lot of people. My guess is nowadays almost everybody streams. They have either Apple Music or Spotify, and they stream. So they get like the biggest source of income through authors' rights is performance rights. Yeah. And also, not a lot of people, like I mentioned, not a lot of people know that if they play a concert and they play at a venue, that they should get some money for the authors' rights. This is something. When I talk to new musicians, they're always like, well, I get a fee for performing, right? For just playing the gig. And yeah, that's right. You get a fee as a performer, but you also get a small part of authors' rights.
So thank you, Erin, for explaining what authors' rights are and where music creators should get them from. And now I want to ask you, Anna, so when I'm a young songwriter in a band, and it's like, okay, so I should get authors' rights, but how do I get it? Where do I get it from? Like, what do I have to do? What would you tell me?
Actually, all countries have more or less every country in the world have a collecting society, and they collect on behalf of the collective. So that's everybody. So personally, I remember when I was very young, I was just lucky to get played on the news because it was a good story, and I played live with my guitar. And somebody told me I should sign up for the collecting society here, which was Coda. And all of a sudden, I had 2,000 euro on my account for that one performance. And that's when I really realized, wow, something like I have some rights here that I get money from. So like if I would have been able to, if I should have negotiated that myself at that stage, I would have had zero money. That's for sure, because I was young and I didn't know that was the price. You know, that's what the song was worth. So that's why we have the collecting societies to make these deals for us, both with broadcasting companies, with venues, with Netflix streaming, stuff like this. So it's very important that they negotiate on behalf of all of us. So we get the money from the beginning and also when we become bigger, but also like, so we have that broad spectrum of music, and we actually get paid for creating, because that makes it possible to create also in the future.
So Anna, when I'm here in Belgium, I also go to Coda, or like how do I, like, where do I go? Like,
So every country has a collecting society like this. It's called Coda in Denmark. It's called Buba in where you are, Ariane, and so forth. So just figure out what the collecting society is called in your country, and then you can find it. I think you can just Wikipedia collecting society and then the name of your country, or you can contact the CMOC maybe to ask what the collecting society is existing in your country. But I think pretty much sometimes if I forget like what's the name of this and this collecting society in this country, I just Google it and they have the answer.
Yeah, and the beauty is, if I may add, that they all talk to each other. So if for instance, if Anna's song gets played in my country, in the Netherlands, the radio will still pay for it, and then they will talk with my society to Anna's society, Coda. They will make sure that the money goes there. So it's a very good communication system between the collecting societies.
Yeah, and also if you collaborate with somebody else, maybe online, or maybe you meet somebody from another country, it's not a problem because they all have the same kind of ID, DNA number. So that way they can communicate to each other.
Right, ID, registering your song, and that's actually very important. And a lot of young musicians, composers, songwriters, they don't know about this. Can you explain what you need to register, or what are the data that you need to kind of like know about, and are there codes or no codes?
Yeah, actually it's very important, like because a lot of young, like you just want to make music and you're so excited about it, and you don't want to think about contracts, you don't want to think about paperwork and stuff like this, but actually it's very important because all of a sudden there's money on the table and maybe somebody else collected that money for you and you don't get anything, and that's not fair. So I think it's a great idea if you get into a session, no matter what it is, just talk out loud, like let's share this 50-50, whatever you think is fair, just so you said it out loud and you have the same expectations. And then when you do register the song, it gets it's called an ICWR code, which is kind of a fingerprint on the song that no other song has. And every collecting society can make this code for you. So even if we write the song and then in 3 years somebody on the other side of the world will record the song and perform the song, then we get the money, which is fair because we created this song.
Thanks. And Ariane, when I'm in a band and my bass player, he writes the bass line for the song that I actually wrote the lyrics and the main melody, and the drummer plays like the drums pattern. So are they also songwriters? Do they get money from authors' rights? What's the deal?
Well, depends. There's many bands that have split up because of questions like these. Basically, for me, it's when I co-write with somebody, I just split the copyright. So if I'm co-writing with one other person, there's two people in the room, we just say 50-50. If you're writing with 3 people, it's a third. sometimes you have an exception to this case when somebody brings in or already brings something into the room that's nearly finished and you're just finishing up. Then you sometimes shuffle the percentages a little bit. But most of the time, my experience is that whenever you start debating the percentages, um, it's very hard to say, well, I wrote the hook or I wrote that specific word in the lyrics, so that should give me 10% more. It's sort of a slippery slope you don't want to go in. So for me, it's like it works the best to split with whoever is in the room. And even that means when somebody's in the room who hasn't done shit, you still pay them like a percentage of the song. So you have to accept a little bit of how do you want to deal with that. And also with bands, I know bands that just split everything, even if the only the keyboard player or the vocalist has written everything. There's lots of different ways. I know that the Chili Peppers, they pay their drummer 25% copyright, and even on a song that he didn't play, they just gave him 25% because he decided not to play. So he made the song better by not playing, and they rewarded him 25%. And bands like Coldplay, they have like a split where Chris Martin, who writes everything, I believe he gets 40% because he's the front guy and he writes everything, and the other three band members get each 20%. So everybody gets something, but it's different, you know. And so it differs. There's a lot of different systems. And the only thing is, if you have one person in the band who writes, and you are truly a band and not a session band, but truly a band, we travel together, we started together. You have one person who writes everything, and he or she takes all the copyright. Um, you can get very disbalanced income within the band, and that's okay as long as you talk about it. But most of the time, people don't talk about it, and they just start looking funny at each other because you have to still drive your secondhand car to the gig, and the other guy who wrote the hit song is driving his Porsche. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you know, so it's most important is to talk about it and to know the different models that are there and to see some different systems that you can use. But in my opinion, it's not a weird thing to give everybody at least some percentage of the copyright if you are together in making the product.
Yeah, so basically it's up to me and my band members what we're gonna do and we're gonna split. Great.
But can I add to this? It's also very important, like you say, Arian. I agree very much with what you say. But if you are like a songwriter and then kind of hire a band to be the session band, you can keep the copyrights and they'll get performing rights because they're performing on the track. And then if one day you want to do a different recording, you know, with other performers, there's still room to give away performing rights to the new performers. Because you can also end up giving a lot of the rights to performers and then ending up doing a different performance of the song, and then the original performers still have to get the copyright. It's a little bit complicated, but it's just to say that, you know, it's true. If someone is in the room and that one yes and one no might have totally defined the song, then they should have copyrights. But if the song is finished and they're just kind of hired to play on the song, there's also rights for that, but it's just performing rights.
Yeah. Oh, that's completely right. That's what I meant with a session band, like you also mentioned. Yeah. If you're like a band, as in the old nostalgic form of four people traveling together for 20 years already in a van, you know, and touring and investing all their time and money into the thing, that's called a band. And otherwise, you were an artist with a session band, and that's the difference you were talking about. Completely agree. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. I'm actually wondering, you're both members of songwriter associations. I'm not talking about the collecting societies. Could you like explain a little bit what you're doing? What are the goals of these songwriter associations, and why should a young composer or music creator join those associations? And maybe Arian?
Yeah. I'm a founder and vice chair of a songwriter society, and it's a fairly new one. We only exist for 4 years now, I think. And actually, we started it because we missed something in the Netherlands, some sort of association that defended our rights within a collecting society, and also our voice was not being heard on the political level. You know, nobody was writing pieces about my generation, so to speak. And there were a lot of people talking about us. There was managers, labels, publishers. They were all like, "Ah, well, we know what artists want and what people want, what songwriters want." And so we decided, well, let's just tell people ourselves what we want because we know what we want. We're in the studio every day, so we know what we're talking about. That was one of the main reasons. And one of the things that I always tell people if they ask me why should I join, I'm always like, well, if you want your rights to be defended, you know, on different levels, like I already mentioned, at the collecting society, but also politically, and now, for instance, with the COVID-19 situation, it's also a good example because a lot of musicians don't have a job, don't have gigs, have difficulty performing. People need to know about this, and they need to know what kind of income streams they're missing and what's happening in the cultural sector. So these are all like issues that a songwriter society focuses on, and it brings this to the outside world, to politics, to newspapers, and to collective society. So basically, it's uniting our forces and making sure that our voices are being heard.
I agree very much. Do you want me to elaborate? Sam?
Always.
Yeah. No, just I agree, and for me, it's also like it's kind of the person next to you that stays on for your whole career, because you might have a band member now, but that band might split up. You know, you might have a manager now, and the manager might be replaced. But like the union is something, or the society, like that's where you find colleagues, and that's where you have somebody like kind of driving you throughout your whole career. Like just as an example, I played in a band myself, and that band split it because of some, you know, producer manager disagreements. And then I was like, what am I now if I'm not a part of this band? Am I still a musician? Am I still a songwriter? And then I started joining these camps that the organization arranged, and I realized, okay, I can do music for films, I can do music for games, and you know that kind of pushes me into things that I didn't know that I was good at. So in a sense, for me, the organization is always smarter than myself in a way. At least now, you know, I'm the chair. It's not that I know everything about everybody, but you know, we can kind of define some frames and to push people into the right direction also in the future. Especially now with the corona, you know, a lot of people have to rethink their way of income and their way of living. So it's really our job to speak up to the politicians, but also to show new ways of earning money on music and of creating music.
Yeah, maybe we can elaborate actually on the COVID-19 situation, which kind of put cultural life upside down, and it's hitting musicians, songwriters, composers very, very hard. And now we see that there's so much content online, concerts on Facebook, Instagram, stuff like this. What do you think? What would you also advise to young songwriters or bands in this situation who just wanted to tour or wanted to do something? So any ideas, advice, evaluation of the situation?
Well, to start, I think it's great to see the creativity online at the moment. Like we have a lot of members who started, you know, playing for a much bigger audience, streaming concerts, and then people are donating money to that concerts, and also here people started playing in backyards and also for older people, and we have drive-in concerts, and so there's a lot of new format just came up because of Corona. I think the most important thing is to remember that nothing is for free. Like if you stream a concert for free, there's so much preparation in a thing like that. Even it's fun, of course, but you do have to prepare yourself. You have to practice and write the songs and all that. So I think it's important that we don't like educate people to think they can just stream concerts for free from now on and forever. So it's definitely it's going to be interesting to see how this like kind of special crisis goes into the future, like what will stay on, because at the same time I feel like the need for live concerts just grew even bigger. Like in the beginning it was fun to stream concerts, but now you really feel the difference. It's not the same, like being together with other people and feeling that live, intense presence, which a concert is. So in a way, it might be a good thing for concerts, because people really realize the importance for it, and something that cannot be competed with by streaming services like Netflix and other entertainment, like live music concerts is something very special.
Would you like to add to that, Arian?
No, I think Anna had a very good story, and what I like is she mentioned already, people get more creative now or not more creative, but they get creative in finding other ways to get their music out there. And the funny thing of being, in every normal market, you have supply and demand. So if you, for instance, if you are a farmer and you produce milk, and nobody wants milk anymore, you just stop producing milk. So that's basically how it works. As an artist, if nobody is asking for your stuff anymore, you won't stop making your stuff. You will just keep on making pieces of art and music. So it's a different market situation. And I even believe that lots of people got more creative throughout COVID-19. Some people got less creative because they had kids to take care of or situations at home that were difficult. But I also believe that a lot of people got more creative because of this. They had more time to create stuff. And the danger, of course, is in, as Anna already mentioned, that you do a lot of stuff for free, for nothing. And that brings us back to a certain era of piracy, which was not a very good era. And people need somehow to be educated that exposure is a good thing as an artist, but it doesn't pay your rent. So you need to have some sort of income. And I definitely like all the live streams and people giving concerts on Twitch and on Facebook and on Instagram. But the things I like the most are a couple of songwriters from my society who found very specific ways of getting those streams monetized, with some sort of a tipping jar which works, or a paywall for a couple of euros for a concert. Like Anna mentioned, you can reach a lot of people throughout streaming. There's no limits to how many people can watch your stream. So if you just make it exclusive and put up a paywall for a couple of euros, you can monetize, and that's something you need to be aware of. Otherwise, people will enjoy the music for free, and in the end, they may not want to pay anymore for music. But yeah, it's difficult. I also agree that live concerts, this has made perfectly clear that live concerts are a thing of beauty for a lot of people. And I know a lot of my friends who are not musicians, they definitely miss going to a concert and having a beer together and enjoying the show, because that's such a specific energy and moment and atmosphere you're creating. It's a one-time thing. We've all been to concerts that were great, and we've been to concerts that really sucked, but you remember them as a specific moment in time, and you cannot replace that by streaming. So I'm looking forward to going back to concerts also. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And to festivals.
Yeah.
Maybe talking about the beginnings of your careers a little bit. Anna already mentioned her example when she was playing the guitar on the TV, and she got money out of it because someone told her, well, you can get author's rights for that. Are there any other things, advice that you would like to share, which is important to young music creators? Anna, maybe, or Arian?
Do you want to go first, Anna?
Yeah, sure. Well, just create, please. Like Arian said, we will keep creating no matter what, and I think that's the beauty of music. Like, nobody will really kills the music, not even Corona crisis. So keep playing and all this, and then of course be aware of like having, like, putting on the long lights in a sense. So you might get a deal where you get some upfront money, a buyout, but that's nothing compared to the money you would have gotten for the long term. And for a lot of us, we have periods where we are creating without getting money, and then we have periods where either the songs are played or we perform live, and that's where we get the money. So it's a good idea to have an eye on the whole chain in this, also because at some point, it might not be as fun as it is right now, and then it should still be possible to keep going so that it will become fun again. So I think it's good to have that in mind, in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. I like the long-term thinking. That's also a lot of times when you start out as a musician, you feel so glad that somebody wants to listen to your music, and you're like, it's great, take it, take it and exploit it and bring it out and do whatever what you want with it. And then after a couple of years, you're like, what happened here? And then it's already too late. And it's sort of it's a really weird business. You have a lot of cowboys walking around who just want to take rights out of you. So my advice to younger musicians is always make sure that you know what kind of rights you have. Like, for instance, author's rights, but also performance rights, producer's rights. You have master rights. You have different rights, which all generate different streams of income. And if you're aware of those different sources of income, you can also be aware of how they should evolve within your career. And if you, at a certain point, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I'm a publisher, I want to sign you exclusively for a deal for this many years, you would be like, okay, so maybe it's a good idea, maybe not, but you know that it exists, you know that the right is there. And an advice I always use is find somebody who knows a little bit more than you do. So always try to find something like a mentor. And this could be, some people have a lawyer as a mentor or a manager, but it can also very easily be an artist or another songwriter who's just, a couple of years further in his career, and he or she can give you perfect advice, and they can tell you, well, you can do that, or you can trust that person, but maybe be a little bit careful with that person. And that helps a lot. And this is also one of the reasons, to go back to the question about songwriters societies. This is one of the reasons that we started our society also, because we were like with 250 people, and we were all inventing the wheel, so to speak. So everybody was asking the same questions, and trying to figure out how does this work on its own. So if you combine those forces, that's also for a songwriter society. You have just like every month you have a Q&A, and you can help people with basic questions like this, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, great. Anja, did you want to say something to this?
Actually, I just wanted to say that thing about the mentor. So you're really right. Like, network is such a big thing, and you learn so much also by writing with other people, realizing how they're writing. So I think also, like, when we write a song, we can release it, very easily. But remember that it's still like a learning process. So even though you had a songwriting session where you don't get the perfect song, you learned something, and I think that's very important to keep in mind. Also, by let's try this collaboration for a couple of years. Don't sign like a lifetime agreement, but just try it for a couple of years. And no matter what, you will probably leave that collaboration and learn something, and also got to know some new people. Because I also know a lot of very talented people who's too proud to share their work with anybody, and that makes it very hard if you have to do everything DIY, even though it's very beautiful. It's really tough. So, like, just go out there with your ears and and be very proactive, and also just write people, because they might answer 1 out of 20, and it's worth asking, otherwise you won't get a no. So I definitely recommend that.
It's very encouraging. Thank you so much. Actually, now turning to the audience, if you want to join your Composer-Songwriter Association, you can go on the ECSA homepage, www.composeralliance.org, and you can just look up under members, the different members that we have from different countries. And yeah, you can just Google them and then write to them and say, well, I'm interested, or ask questions. They're always happy to welcome new members. And I think we covered the most important rights and issues for young creators, no? Yeah, well then I say thank you to both of you, and I also want to thank Jeunesse Musicale Internationale. I don't know if they pronounce themselves in this, but for inviting us to this World Music Day pop-up festival. And if you want to know more about ECSA and what we do, as I said, you can connect on our website, composeralliance.org, or on Facebook, or we have LinkedIn account or Instagram, ECSA_Composer Alliance. And yeah, hope you have a great World Music Day. Thank you, Arjen. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.